All right, being 6 o'clock, I will call the Monday, December 6th, 2024 meeting of the Freetown Conservation Commission to order. The meeting is being recorded. Is anyone else recording the meeting?
I am.
Okay, just state your name, just so.
Lars Carlson, VHB.
Okay, right. Thank you, sir. All right.
What's the date today, sir?
Today is the December 9th.
You may not have noticed, I think you said December sixth when you said the meeting.
I think I said the 6 o'clock meeting, but that's beside the point. All right, item number 1 is request for certification of compliance, track land in 165 South Main Street, River right of way in North Brayley Crossing right of way for the T. So Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is, we have 2 orders that are open on the railroad project. One for the Fall River Secondary, and another for the New Bedford Main Line. I think you said, so the first one is 260612. I'm assuming that's the file number for the one we're talking about now.
For the track lane in 165 South.
So there's one for the Fall River Secondary track
And one for,
and the
Cross.
Freetown Station. And there's another one for the New Bedford Main Line track.
right,
The 2 separate filings, 2 separate orders. The one is SE 260612. The second one is
Yes.
260613.
right, correct.
So we're talking about which one?
We're at, we can talk about both of them. You can go from one to the other. They're all in the same line. They're all
Okay, so
in-
we submitted 2 separate requests,
Right.
separate
So,
orders.
well, why don't you start with the Fall River line? one
Thank you.
first.
So as I mentioned, this is a request for certificate of compliance. The project is complete. We submitted a letter from myself and the stamped a letter from the professional engineer indicating that the project was completed in compliance with the order with no deviations on the Fall River Secondary or station site. The majority of the station site is outside of buffer zone. But the stormwater management system was under review by the commission. It's been all constructed and is functioning well. We attempted to have a site visit with Adeline Belsheim, the new agent. We could not get out on the right of way due to the activity of the test trains. So she had requested that we appear tonight, discuss the situation with the commission, and then submit a written report if that's what the commission desires to close out the hearing. So again, we don't have any deviations on this project from the order, but we were not able to have a site visit, so.
We were able to visit the station.
We did actually, I should mention, we did visit the station and we did visit the wetland mitigation area, which was constructed at the station to offset the permanent wetland impacts. She observed the mitigation area and determined that it was successful. We also have documentation that was submitted both with the original request, and I emailed it to her today, a report from a third party that certifies that the mitigation area was successful and meets the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act. We also have a letter from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection that concurs with our determination that the mitigation areas were successful. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Finding also, your involvement since the order was issued and construction began.
So I have my apologies. With me tonight is Gene Fox, project manager with MassDOT, and Ken Caputo, civil engineer with VHB. You wanted me to say that I've been involved with the project since day one.
You're the environmental one.
I've been the environmental monitoring project. I was involved with doing all the environmental permitting to get the orders and conditions. I've been on site weekly, at least daily, some weeks, and have observed the construction and believe that it has been completed in compliance with the order.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any pictures or maps to display for the public? Or any copies of the documentation that was referred?
I have a whole stream of drawings here, if you'd like to see them. I'm happy
Sir,
to-
the chairman.
No, okay.
Well,
Hold on.
So the answer is yes, I have the as-built drawings uh, from the project that were submitted by the construction contractor.
Okay. Nicole's gonna bring up the plans, just so anyone who wants to look at them can see them on the screen.
So mitigation monitoring report that I referenced would be in the documentation for the filing number 613. But the plan set is for the Fall River Secondary Station is included in the filing for the 612.
Mr. Carlson, the agent just mentioned the 3-year monitoring report. Would there be an issue in forwarding that to the commission as it's formulated?
It's included in the filing for 613, and I also sent it to you and Adeline today.
Okay.
So
Fine,
if you want to see that, you'll have to open the other
Right,
file,
but, all right,
but
I just wanted to
that
make
has been
sure.
provided.
Okay, all right, fine. All right, and on 0613, there doesn't seem to be any issues at all on the Braley Road
So
section.
0613, we do have one minor deviation,
Okay,
and that consists of what's referred to as a wayside maintenance pad. That was determined to be required late in the game. We did not request a modification to the order. What it is a small area of pavement that's between the tracks, between the rails of the tracks, and extends slightly outside the footprint of the tracks. And the purpose for that maintenance pad is to allow a vehicle to access a station, a signal house, while not also occupying the tracks. Typically, there would be a requirement to have an access road through private property to reach the right of way. If we did not have the wayside maintenance pad, that would be required, but because we were able to construct these pads, a vehicle can travel down the tracks, exit the tracks, enter the signal house and do whatever maintenance is required, and the train can continue to travel. That is highlighted in the letter that I submitted, and I could show you where that is and generally what it looks like in the 613 set of drawings. It's basically a 30 by, well,
What do you say, 12?
It's about 20 by 50.
a 20 by 50 area
It's a
of
parking spot.
blacktop pavement in
It's a
between.
parking spot,
Yeah, it's a single parking spot for a truck.
and it was built within the proposed limit of clearing.
Correct.
We didn't do extra clearing to build it.
There's no additional alteration of buffer zone. There was no wetland impact associated with it. And it's a measure that actually reduces disturbance to wetland because there will not now be traveling to and fro over private property.
okay. Anyone else from the commission have any questions? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion. Motion has been made to grant the certificate of compliance. Do I have a second?
Second,
Mr. Chairman, when were you gonna do public input?
Not now. Actually, we do not have anything for public input. If you wanted to be on the agenda, you could call the office.
You have quite a few representatives of your community here.
This is a formality. The plans were presented probably 5 years ago now. This is the end of and this is just saying they've complied with the orders, they've complied with the plan, and we're giving them their certificate of compliance. It's only a formality. There's nothing other than that.
Well, I just have another note, Mr. Chairman. In the presentation we just heard, I think there was some conflicting information about whether or not the pad was on the original drawing. And then we heard that it was in the drawing, so I'm not sure which it is.
All right, well, I don't see any real issue in something they did basically on area that is not of wetlands. What they actually did, if I'm not mistaken, is they built this and they didn't have to go through any wetlands. Is that, would that be?
Yeah, to the point that,
Can you state his name and address?
it was not on the original plan, it's on the as-built. That's right. So it's in the plan of record that was.
If you could state your name and address, sir.
Say who you are.
No.
Ken Caputo.
Okay, yeah, okay, but the gentleman behind you,
David Rosa,
yes,
yes,
in your address,
80 South Main Street.
okay. All right,
I mean, you did invite the public here, and there's no pictures of where the change is or what you're being asked to approve. And as you said, the plans are 5 years old. I think you would take the steps to refresh the public's memory.
Mr. Carlson, would you be so kind as to address that?
The plans of record are more than 5 years old, but the as-built drawings are dated for the 12 filing, the as-built drawings are, just for the station, are dated June 19th, 2023. For the Fall River Secondary, they're dated June 16th, 2023. And if you're really concerned, sir, I do actually have some photos of the pad. You'll see that it's a very minor element, but it is in the as-built drawings. 13 file.
Well, the public
There's no-
came out because they were invited. I think it would be a courtesy to, bring them up to date. on what these look like.
I'm not aware that there was any public invitation.
We all received a certified mail. I had to sign for it.
That's for the sewer. I think he's talking
All
about
right.
sewer.
All right,
Oh,
That-
you've got,
that's not
you're
That's not-
talking about something else, Mr. Rosa.
For the sewer.
This is for the railroad. The certified mail was for the sewer project that will be taken up later,
On South Main.
yes.
There's
In
no,
this meeting,
What's
Yeah.
that?
No
It-
requirement
It's being
to
taken up
notify
at this meeting, but it's another item. Okay? This is for the MBTA tracks. It's a certification of compliance, that they have complied with the orders that they've been working on. So that's,
maybe I got confused because hard copies of the agenda were provided to the attendees.
all right, well, I thought I had read it appropriately, but, all right. Do we have a second for the certification of compliance?
I seconded that.
Okay, fine. All right, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. The certificate of compliance has been approved
Charlie, that was for both of them, right? I just
Yes,
wanted to make sure,
yes.
okay.
so that
for both.
both files.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
very good. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
No problem. Good luck. How many more months of chest trains?
We're getting really close.
I can say.
And I know they're out there.
There were like 8 yesterday.
They were all weekend, they were going,
Yeah.
yep. I can hear them too.
All right. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, request for determination of applicability to, for 19 Cliff Drive.
Would you like that scan?
Yes, if you would, don't mind. It's just state your name and address.
Jennifer Bowden, 19 Cliff
Thank you, Jennifer. You just want to give us a little rundown of what you guys do.
Sure, so I have I own a single family home on Cliff Drive, so this is, it's within 100 feet of the wetlands, and the map I submitted showed the buffer zone and everything. So basically, it's a single family home. It has an existing gravel driveway, gravel walkways, gravel area under the deck. Total square footage is about 3,100 square feet. And what I'm requesting is to be able to replace that with pavers.
Mhm.
So replace all of the existing stone. There are existing cobblestones that line it, so the cobblestones will stay, they'll get reset. And then the pavers will basically just replace the gravel areas, and then I'll also add flower beds and things like that, just to create some additional buffer.
Okay, our agent visited, she didn't have a problem with it. The only thing that she kind of requested is we keep a surface that water can drain. The pavers, are they gonna be so tight that they would, cause water not to drain through them, or would they be, able to have water go through them?
So they'll be set based on, whatever the manufacturer sort of instructions are for setting them. There'll be crushed stone underneath them as a base layer. And then I did talk to the contractors about, basically, it's slightly pitched. So I'm not anticipating that water would pool, but there is one area where potentially a drain could get added to ensure proper drainage.
Okay. Do you know where the drain would direct?
If there's one added, it would be immediately in front of the garage. One contractor told me I didn't need it, another one told me I did. I kind of want to, once I have a contractor selected, things are approved, we would go over kind of the final details, the plan and things like that.
We would just, the Conservation Commission would ask that if you drain it, you try to drain it away from the river.
Okay.
Even though it's got to end up in the river, but so it percolates.
Okay.
So she also said maybe you would want to consider pollinated or plants that would pollinate, native plants more
Yep.
than anything else.
Yep.
All right.
I can do that.
So I guess the only stipulation I would put is if you do put a drain in, that it drain basically probably more towards the street
Okay.
than the river. All right. With that, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, well, Steve has made the motion. You'll
Oh,
make the
I
second.
will
How about that, Mark? No?
Okay, I will second.
All right, with one stipulation that any drainage drain towards the street. All in favor, Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, your paperwork will be with you for 2 days. I think you're used to this, so we've been here before.
I've been
haven't we?
here before,
Yes,
yeah.
all right. All right, have a
Thank you
good
very
day.
much.
No problem. Item number 3, continuation of hearing for notice of intent for 0 Bryant Neck. They have asked for a continuance on that, correct, Nicole?
Yes,
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to continue the public hearing for 0 Bryant's Neck
to January 27th
to January 27th
at 6 o'clock at the police
at
station.
6 o'clock at the police station.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Item number 4, again, continuation of notice of intent, public hearing for notice of intent for 32 Middleborough Road. They also have asked for a continuance for that, the same date and time, place.
I will make that motion.
Motion has been made,
I'll second it.
motion has been seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Public, continuation of public hearing for 16 Boxwood Lane.
Chairman,
Yes,
what date?
Uh,
The 32 Borough was changing.
The January 27th at 6 o'clock at the police station.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
continuation of public hearing for 16 Boxwood. You are the proofs, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we put a cease and desist order then. Have you come up with a plan and so forth, correct? 16 Boxwood. So, anything else, nothing else has changed? Okay. The silk fence has been put in. This was a situation where they got started before they should have, so to speak. They brought it into compliance. So is there anyone in the audience to speak of 16 Boxwood? Seeing none, I would accept the motion that we accept the plan for 16 Boxwood. There's been,
I'll make that motion.
the only thing that we have, I'll add, is that the agent has recommended a split rail fence along the tree line at the wetlands to be a barrier so that there is an encroachment on the wetlands at a later date. Permanent. It doesn't have to be, you know, from point A to point B the whole way, but if you could have, I don't know how many feet, roughly. Okay, I maybe say put up 4 to 6 sections of rail fence, kind of as a mental barrier, more than actually a physical barrier. We all, what's that?
Right along the wetland line.
Yes, yeah. And we have some, notice, a small like, metal notice that you can nail onto the fence. It says, you know, wetlands beyond this point. In that way, there's, you know, not the idea of, oh, well, you know, we'll move a little bit further. Yes, yeah, you can come in. And the other stipulation that she said, if the work is not to be conducted this winter, that you put down some winter rye. At least I don't know how much we're gonna, but you know, we'll try. All right, I don't know how much more time we're gonna have to propagate grass, but if you could try that, or if not that, and you want to put up the silk fence and you know, make sure that it's not open land to be washed away. Okay, with that, if I haven't already, I'll accept the motion to issue the permit.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion's been made, motion is seconded. Margaret French,
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion passes. All right, you'll get your paperwork in a couple of days, all right? Take care. Item number 6. I don't think we opened the hearing. We didn't open the hearing on 44.
I don't think so. I think it's been continued
Okay.
the whole time.
Is there anyone here from 44 Elm Tree Drive?
There is people on, yes, they should be on Zoom.
Okay. Item number 6, 44 Elm Tree Drive.
Yes, this is George Collins from Collins Civil Engineering Group.
Okay, hello, Mr. Collins. All right, since you're here, we will have some motion to open the public hearing for 44 Elm Tree Drive. Do I
I'll
hear
make-
that motion is made and seconded. Margaret French,
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp,
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Also, can I have a motion to waive the reading of the public notice?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made, motion is seconded. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp? Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Okay, Mr. Collins, once again, if you just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name's George Collins, registered professional engineer from Collins Civil Engineering Group out of West Bridgewater. I'm representing Mr. Edward Lowe for a septic upgrade at 44 Elm Tree Drive. And would it be okay if I shared my screen?
Yes, it would.
Can anybody see, can you see my screen at this point?
No,
No.
Okay, here we go. And can you see that screen now?
Yes, now we can see the plan, sir.
Yeah, so we I was hired by Mr. Lowe to design a septic system. They have a failed septic system. There's a lot going on this plan, but there's right in here there's a failed leaching pit. And we have a number of things going on the property. We have an on-site well here with a 100-foot radius. We have an off-site well here with a 100-foot radius. And then elevation 14 right here, that is the that's the flood zone. And then this is the Assonet River here. There's actually a dam in this vicinity here. The mean high water associated with the Assonet River is shown in blue. This orange dashed line here is the 50-foot buffer zone. This first dashed blue line is the inner riparian zone limit. And then this blue line over here is the outer riparian zone limit. So, I was aware that there's flood zone on the property when we did the percolation tests. We actually dug up in this vicinity here. There's a test pit here that's labeled unsuitable. We dug down and we basically hit ledge and the soils are very, very poor. So we abandoned that location. My intent was to have the system a little bit further up the hill, getting it completely out of the flood zone, but unfortunately, due to the soil conditions, we were not able to put the system in this vicinity. So it pushed us further down the hill. And again, we're trying to maintain the 100-foot setbacks to the wells. So I was hoping to put the system in this vicinity, but due to unsuitable soils, we ended up going down the hill a little bit. It should be noted that this plan has been approved by the Board of Health. We're proposing a Presby system. And I want to just zoom in a little bit here. We do have, we are proposing an 8-inch straw wattle along here in this red dashed line for an erosion control. This property goes out to the main road, basically through it. There's like a parking lot, and there's a multi-family house in this location. So it's kind of an unusual setup where you kind of drive through a little bit of a parking area to get out here. I do have a 12 by 12 by 1 foot crushed stone tracking pad, just to obviously get as much of the any dirt that gets built up on the on any of the wheels or the tires. And then I apologize, but originally when I looked at this property. I was talking to the health agent about it, which apparently he was on the commission at one point, and it was his understanding that this was not that this was a coastal flood zone. So originally, I was under the impression that this was a coastal flood zone, which basically pulls compensatory storage out of it. Subsequently, between the review consultant and DEP, I guess we've come to the consensus that this is not a coastal flood zone, and then if it's deemed appropriate by the commission, then compensatory storage would apply. And just to obviously in an attempt to get the project approved, I would like to have a quick discussion regarding the compensatory storage, unless the commission would like to discuss something else before I get into that.
No, why don't you go right ahead?
So, okay, great. So this area here, if you look let's see, where are we here? So this right here is the flood, the elevation 14. So this area here is the filled portion of the flood zone. If you take a closer look at the existing contours, you basically have about 1 foot of fill on this edge, and then the further up the hill you go to, the fill goes to 0. So the average fill in this area is only a half a foot. So I did that math, 1,300 square feet to be filled with an average depth of a half a foot, which results in 650 cubic feet. And then in this location, I've got a proposed compensatory storage area. And similar to that area, basically, you have the compensatory storage is basically 0 on this leading edge, but then it goes up to approximately 1 foot of a cut in here. So this area here, the average cut for compensatory storage is about a half a foot. So similar math, 1,400 square feet with an average cut below elevation 14 of a half a foot, which results in 700 cubic feet of compensatory storage. So basically, in the event that this area floods, this area can compensate for that, for those flood waters. One thing that I did with a little bit of correspondence with the review consultant, we did discuss the fact that that my client is basically it's a family home. He's been there, I believe, since the 1950s. When the property when there are flood conditions, the flood waters come out along here and they run down into this parking lot in a southerly direction. This stone wall here is the property line. He and based on his firsthand knowledge, there's never been floodwaters anywhere even close to that property line. And as we all know, the flood maps are guidelines for us to follow. And obviously, if something is in or near the flood zone, then we take another look at it, a closer look at it, and then basically make a determination if this will in fact impact the flood zone and ultimately require some sort of compensatory storage so we don't impact the abutters essentially. And then there is one section of the wetland regulations I just want to read. It's 310.1057 4A. And in the very first sentence, it says compensatory storage shall be provided for all flood storage volume that will be lost as the result of a proposed project within bordering land subject to flooding, when in the judgment of the issuing authority, said loss will increase or will contribute incrementally to an increase in the horizontal extent and level of the flood waters during peak flows. So basically what that says to me is, based on the information that the commission is presented, it's basically a discretionary call if the commission feels that this project will impact the floodwaters and basically increase the horizontal footprint of the flood zone, then the regulations say that it shall require compensatory storage. Based off of the information that I've obtained, and it may or may not be true proof of burden, but basically when my client has been there all these years, and his family has actually been there since the 50s, they have never experienced any floodwaters, especially after that March 2010 floodwaters. It's sort of like if they didn't get flooded then, we just really don't know when it would. So, based off of the limited information that I have, it's my opinion that this is probably not physically in the flood zone. It is graphically within the flood zone based off of the FEMA flood maps. So it's my opinion that we're not going to impact the flood zone, and compensatory storage is not warranted. However, that is not my call. That is the commission's call. So, so basically the two ways that I would like to see this go would be an approval with or an approval without compensatory storage. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the commission may have at this time.
Does anyone have any questions from the commission?
I'm okay.
I don't have. Anyone from the audience have any questions or comments?
I'm just a little curious, because as the gentleman just said, it's a with or without decision on your part, I believe, as he presented it. I'm just wondering what you might base your decision on.
I don't quite follow you, Mr. Rose.
Perhaps the engineer could explain his with and without decision that he just explained.
Mr. Collins, could you get I guess a little deeper into
Sure.
your feelings on the alternatives?
Yeah, so basically, from a cost perspective for my client, we don't want to waste money on designing, staking out, performing an as-built, and excavating a compensatory storage area. Hypothetically, I don't know what the actual numbers were, but say that's a $4,000 item. Certainly, if the commission felt that the compensatory storage is warranted, then we would absolutely, we would gladly request to have the project approved with the compensatory storage. But what we would prefer is not to spend that money on the compensatory storage and all the follow-up analysis and construction layout, and just get the project as presented minus the compensatory storage. And if you do look at the flood maps regionally, it's a substantially large area. And then this is a very, very small volume of water that we're talking about in relation to the regional flood zone. So again, I think, my opinion, if I read it right out of the regulations, I do not think that this will result in an incremental increase to the horizontal extent and level of floodwaters. I don't think by building this with a little bit of volume in the flood zone, it is my opinion, you're not going to raise the flood zone. You're not going to make the flood zone larger off-site. And again, that's just my opinion. But obviously we need to make sure any decisions made, the commission has a comfort level that is the case.
Thank you, sir. I think I understand your implication, your meetings.
I have a question, Mr. Collins.
Sure.
I'm aware of the fact, well, there's a dam near the site of the, construction here. There's also another dam further up, river, from the site. And there is some concern about that dam and the possibility of the state ordering it to be taken down. In your opinion, would that change your viewpoint?
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't have enough information to comment in an intelligent manner. I don't, but again, just in general, by wrapping our head around what's going on here, we have if you're building Walmart, you're filling in doing an 8-foot fill in a flood zone, and you have major compensatory storage. That absolutely makes sense. We have reason to believe that this is not even in the flood zone. It's an absolutely a minor amount of flooding from larger. Again, it's not we're not building Walmart, and my opinion is that the compensatory storage is not warranted. However, that is not my decision to make.
All right. Anyone from the commission, what might be their viewpoint on having the compensatory flood storage?
I'm kind of agreeing with Mr. Collins that if it hasn't flooded in 2010, I'm not sure what could happen in the future.
Mr. Collins, I have institutional knowledge to some extent, having been living in town for 68 years and being familiar with the property. Our agent recommended it, but I'm going to say that the height, there may at some time be some flooding. We don't know for sure. But the other thing is, as I spoke about the dam upriver, we don't know in the future if they'll be taking down both of the dams at some time. And then if they did that, it would definitely not be a flood issue. I'll accept. I think the commission, if I am not correct, if anyone else would say, I think the commission will waive the compensatory storage. Would that be true?
I agree with that.
Okay, Steve. All right, so we'll approve the project without the compensatory storage. It's kind of a little bit of a strange area there. Could it be flood? Could it be tidal at some time in the future? Yes. So with that, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made. Motion is seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. So the thing is that you can go as a plan without the compensatory storage.
Thank you very much. And then just administrative question. When would you typically issue an order of conditions? Is it like at the next meeting, or what is your timing? I'd be just interested, just from a construction standpoint. There is no real estate transaction or anything like that. That it's just it's a failed system, and we're just trying to wrap our heads around when we start doing work.
I think the only order of condition would have been the compensatory flood storage, and the fact, you want to have erosion control as you have on your plan, and the storage. I don't believe there'd be a issue with storage of material, so we would be going upon your plan.
Okay, but as far as time, just the issuance of the permit, do you have a sense of what that might be?
The permit would be ready,
Hopefully later this week. I'm off tomorrow, but I should be able to start working on them Wednesday and then for you guys to sign and come in and sign them.
Okay, terrific.
So hopefully
so
later
about
this week.
Okay,
about next-
terrific. Yeah, sometimes
Monday.
sometimes it takes 2-3 weeks, or they wait till the next
Oh,
week.
no.
So that's
No.
terrific. I appreciate that.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you very much. You have,
You also. Item number 7, continuation of notice of intent, 11 Walnut Street. They have asked for a continuance, so I'll accept the motion to continue to January 20.
January 27th at
27th.
6 o'clock at the police station.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made, motion is seconded. All, Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Hearing is continued to that date. Item number 8, notice of intent for South Main Street, Ridge Hill Road, Campanelli Drive, Alexandria Drive, North Main Street for the sewer project. So with that, I'll accept the motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made, motion is seconded. Margaret French,
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp,
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. I'll also accept the motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made. Second, Steve?
Second.
Motion is seconded. Margaret French,
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp,
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, sir, if you would like to state your name for the record.
My name is Andrew Grota. I'm a project manager with Apex Companies.
All right, and would you like to give us a rundown on?
Love to. Permission to share our screen.
Yes,
My colleague here, Will Yan, also is an engineer with us for Apex Companies. So would it be best to stand here, Mr. Chair, or do you want me to go up front?
well, if maybe you would want to go up front to
Okay.
face.
Sure. Do you want to share that screen? Excellent. As I said, my name is Andrew Grota. I'm a project manager with Apex Companies. I've been working on this project in particular. Really, it's been going back since 2019. We were hired to do the initial conceptual assessment of expanding sewer in the Asona Shores area. We recently retained in 2023 to start the design of that project. So we'll get into an overview of the project details and go over the scope and the impacts. So just a little bit of an agenda. I'll just go through the background of the project, kind of the overview of the scope, the actual areas being affected, and then go over the impacts and the measures that we plan to take. So the goal of the project is to expand sewer service along the South Main Street corridor, as well as also protecting the health of the Asona River and the Taunton River watershed. For those folks who don't know, the Taunton River watershed is a protected water body. It does have a total maximum contaminant level, or a TMDL, for nutrients, for nutrients enter into the body. There's a number of different municipalities that send their treated wastewater into the Taunton River. So the onus of the project was to try to get folks off of septic and onto a centralized collection system, which would then be conveyed to the city of Fall River for treatment. So really the goal is to be able to not only expand sewer service, but prevent the excessive nutrients from septic systems, non-compliant Title V systems from entering these water bodies and causing harm to aquatic life. And currently the town itself has an intermunicipal agreement with the city of Fall River. Today, they currently do send sewage to Fall River for treatment. Actually, the Stop and Shop parcel on South Main Street has a small pumping station that conveys flow. So we would be doing the same, sending our flow in a separate main to Fall River. Next slide. So here's an overview of the project. I know it's a little hard to see on the screen. We're installing about 15,300 feet of a collection system piping, which consists of a gravity sewer and a low pressure sewer system. Primarily the area in question is along the South Main Street corridor. So approximately from the Assonet Four Corners all the way down to installation wise, we're going down to about Narrows Road. The area in green, that's the area that's highlighted in green there, we're proposing to reuse an existing pipe that's already in the roadway. Back when they installed the original sewer force main for the Stop and Shop Plaza, they had installed a separate 8-inch line to be able to connect this in the future. So they had plans of this exact project, which were basically tying in this area down the road. So our scope in the green area represents pressure testing, cleaning, and CCTV of that pipeline to make sure it's all intact, make sure there's no defects, and that it's appropriate to reuse. But the onus of the project, the majority of our work is focused in the red area in the top right-hand corner. That's the area in question tonight. Really the focus, as I said, it's a combination of low pressure and gravity sewer piping, as well as the install of 2 sewer pumping stations, one at 23 Alexandra Drive, which is in the industrial park, and then one at the 4 South Main Street site, which is in the Four Corners. It's a town-owned parcel that we'll be looking to redevelop. So as I mentioned, the onus would be to send this flow south on South Main Street and connect into the city of Fall River system. As I said, the town already has an existing agreement with the city to send these flows, and we've been working with the commission to be able to coordinate this work over the past year. So can we go to the next slide? So the impacts themselves, there's 6 wetland resource areas that we've identified that are adjacent or near our proposed work. That's the reason for this NOI submission. None of the work itself is permanent in nature aside from the work at the 2 pump station sites. Everything else is being done within the right of way, within the roadway limits. The work itself, as I said, the majority of it's open cut trench excavation for install of new sewer piping. The work in the 2 pump stations, we are putting in small conveyance stations that pump flow from these centralized areas out. So if you think of it as like you're trying to push flow uphill, obviously flow doesn't flow uphill on its own, so you need pumps to be able to overcome that head pressure. So the work at the 23 Alexandra site, it's within 100 feet of an isolated vegetated wetland that falls within the town's bylaw. That's the reason for the impacts there. And then at the 4 South Main Street site, it falls outside of the 100-foot buffer. But again, because it's part of the scope of the project, we felt it appropriate to make sure we comment on the approach. And as I mentioned, the impacts to the wetland resource areas are temporary in nature. I mean, the majority of our work is within pavement right-of-way limits. We're not looking to touch any wetland areas. We're not looking to, expand pervious areas beyond what we're identifying here for these two pump station sites.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
All right, so number 4 South Main Street, how close is that to City Hall?
It's a stone's throw away. I mean, probably a couple hundred feet.
Okay, and and this pipeline is gonna run out to some of Bay Shores, is that what I heard?
The pipeline, so there'll be a small pump station at 4 South Main that'll collect flows by gravity to that site. So it'll pick up like Town Hall in the immediate area. And then that flow will be pumped uphill on South Main Street all the way to High Street. So we're actually taking flow from that 4 South Main Street site, pumping it up to High Street, and then from there flowing by gravity.
Up to High Street, but you're not gonna move along South Main Street toward Fall River.
Well, so we are. So basically what happens is it's broken into multiple segments. So you think of it as like a collection system. So everything flows to 4 South Main, gets pumped up to High Street. High Street then flows by gravity to this 23 Alexandra site. And then from 23 Alexandra, that gets pumped all the way down South Main Street into Fall River. So everything is kind of congregating at these centralized pump station sites. It just avoids having to build like multiple pump stations. You try to select appropriate sites where you can minimize the amount of stations you need.
I had another question regarding the Assonet Bay Shores. Is someone or you or a study somewhere saying that there is some form of leakage or whatever from the systems that the homes on the Assonet Bay Shores into the Taunton River?
There, we have evidence to believe that there has been failed septics over the years that have contributed to some of the ecological degradation of the Taunton River watershed. I don't have the specific examples in front of me, but I have reviewed septic records. I know there's been a fair amount of replacements or repairs over the
And we
years.
do realize that the Taunton waste treatment plant and the Fall River waste treatment plant both fail to meet the treatment requirements, particularly during heavy rainstorms, right? And that could be a contributing factor to the data you're looking at.
It very well might be. I don't know much about those facilities, to be honest with you.
Well, they would be significant contributing factors to any sort of data on pollution in that area.
I know they are combined systems, so to your point, I agree. I mean, they certainly would contribute to that load. But for the purposes of our project, we would be essentially tying into an existing pipe that was already installed in place on South Main Street.
That was the one put in by Shaw's, correct?
It was put in in the early 2000s. I think it was done by a local contractor, KR Resendes.
But you don't know the date or the year that took place.
I don't offhand. I just know it was early
I
2000s.
just asked because, you know, sometimes these pipes deteriorate over time.
And that's the reason why we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure the pipes stay active. You know, so rather than open cut and excavate a brand new force main for 1.5 miles, we're gonna CCTV, clean it, and then pressure test to make sure it's all.
So I see this as some benefit to wherever the pipe runs by, but it doesn't seem like it runs by, like my place at 80 South Main Street, doesn't run by there, does it?
Where's 80 South Main Street?
That would be south of number 4,
And we are picking up,
going toward Fall River.
right, so I think folks in the red area are being picked up as part of our project, that folks in the green area, that area is not being collected as part of this project.
Could you point on the map with your finger, if you would, so we can be sure what you're pointing us was?
The four corners is right here,
Okay,
so it's gonna come up South Main Street. So
okay.
You're 80, so you're gonna be around here somewhere in the, by Nottingham, or whatever.
Are you south of the 24th exchange?
Yes, south of the 24th exchange.
Okay, I was gonna say, because our line ends, what we're connecting into is by Narrows Road, which is, I think, just shy where the red meets the green. Yes.
Okay, so does it go as far as 80, the area that you're gonna run that pipe by?
Yeah, it's gonna go all the way to Fall
By
Yeah,
way of South Main Street?
River. Yes.
Okay, so that, part of that stretch is state highway.
correct.
Okay, and if, according to what I was told by District 4, once they put new pavement down, they can't open it up for 4 years or 5 years.
It's typically a moratorium.
So your actual construction is gonna be outside of whatever that window was?
Well, the intent here would be, we would construct the work, restore the pavement, you know, to what MassDOT would be looking for within their right of way. And then typically they put a moratorium of however many years they can't open up the road after that. But to
So
answer,
so you as a company can do it, but I as a private individual can't do it.
Mr. Rosa, okay, that's out of the spectrum.
Oh, no, I wanna know if it runs by my
Well,
properties.
but, Mr. Rosa, what I'm telling you is whether you can do it or the town can do it, it is irrelevant.
I
to-
get-
No,
that's
Mr.
fine,
Rosa,
I
Mr.
accept
Rosa, I'm telling you, okay, I'm not having a discussion. It's out of the realm of the discussion we have here tonight, okay? It doesn't pertain to the matter we have here tonight. So if you go beyond that question is
Okay,
out,
that's fine.
is out, okay?
All
right, all right.
Direct. Is that okay with you?
Well, we're not gonna talk about whether you or somebody else can open pavement. That's
I already
immaterial.
accepted your point, sir.
Okay, all right, I just want to make that clear.
I accept-
All right,
I
okay,
accept your point. Okay.
okay, go on.
So that pipeline is gonna run down South Main Street toward Fall River. Okay, beyond the interchange, which I think you mentioned.
yes, sir.
Will the people along that pipeline be able to tie in?
So there's multiple pipelines that are being installed. There's a sewer force main, which is its own dedicated individual line, but then there's also a low pressure sewer force main that folks would be able to tie into. So there's multiple pipelines, one of which that folks would be able to connect to south of that 24.
Are you familiar with why they opened up the road just a short time ago?
I'm not familiar with that, no.
They put in a lot of, I think, significant piping and ran, I believe, cable down through all along there. But perhaps you have that on your map. I don't want to ask any more questions from that point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I just need to be clear too. From Innovation
Excuse me,
Road-
sir, could you state your name? Could you state your name?
Howard Long. From Innovation Road to the Florida line where chemical plant is 8 houses. So what exactly is gonna run by the 8 houses? What are you changing? What are you including?
So nothing is changing there. We're reusing an existing 8-inch ductile iron main that's left in the ground that was capped and installed about 20 years ago. So what we're doing is essentially cleaning and pressure testing that pipeline to make sure it's all intact, there's no defects, no joints that pulled apart. So in that area in particular, sir, we're not actually touching anything, we're just basically making sure that line's intact before we utilize it.
But it says you are adding, some stubs, service stubs.
That's further up on the north side of the project. So the service stubs are being added when we're installing new collection system piping on the north side of the project. The area that you're referencing, we're not touching anything in the ground. We're just looking to reutilize that existing pipeline that's already there.
So you're just gonna clean.
Correct. Clean, camera, and pressure test.
I'm sorry, when you say camera, what do you mean? Is that a visual?
No, there's a small crawler style camera that gets inserted into the pipeline.
And that camera provides what?
It's a closed circuit television inspection of
So
the
it
pipe.
provides you with a visual inspection of the inside of the pipe.
Yes, sir. If you want to go to the next slide, Will. So, if you want. Yeah. So these are the environmental impacts. Actually, just go to the next one, show the photos. So these are the two areas in question. The photo on the left represents the 23 Alexandra Drive site. It's a wooded area, so the intent here would be to clear this area and put a new pump station right at the corner of Alexandra Drive and Ridge Hill Road. The area on the right represents the 4 South Main Street building. This is to be demoed by the town outside of the scope of this project. The intent here would be to put a new sewer pump station at this particular site. Both of these sites would consist of a below grade wet well, which would collect all the wastewater flows, a below grade valve vault for operation and maintenance of the station, and then it would have an above grade enclosure for electrical controls. The 4 South Main site in particular, we ended up trying to blend with the aesthetic of the existing community. So we ended up going with the above grade enclosure that matches the look and feature of the existing building, just on a smaller scale. Whereas at the 23 Alexandra site, it would essentially be on a pad, a electrical box or enclosure, if you will. Both sites will also have standby generators in the event of a loss of power. So that's the photos, and if you want to go to the last one, Will. And this is just the protection measures which we had identified on the plans. Really, like I said, because the majority of our work was within the roadway, really silt socks, catch basin inserts, making sure that we're going through dewatering bags is really the standard practice for trench excavation. As I said, our intent is not to touch or replicate any wetlands. We're not disturbing any wetlands as part of this project. All of our work is temporary in nature, aside from the work at those 2 pump stations. So with that, I'll happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
I have no questions other than, is there gonna be a review process with a secondary or peer review of this, or are you asking us to go on with it as, I just was wondering if there is any other peer review.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we've been meeting with the town water and sewer commission on a monthly basis for the, I want to say the last 14, 15 months. Well, so we've been providing regular updates on a monthly basis to the commission. I mean, if they so happen to choose to do a peer review, that would be fine. I don't believe there's any plans to do so at this point.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
Now, when that pipe heads south from the center, from the forefront, how will it cross that bridge?
So you're talking about the one that crosses the Sonnet River, that little
Yes.
stone culvert?
Yeah.
So the intent there is to not disturb the culvert itself. We'd be running the pipe shallow there and insulating that pipeline. So essentially, you'd have to neck up and then go above the top of the stone box culvert or the stone culvert that runs across. So
So it'd be external to the bridge.
it would be within the pavement. So it would be similar to how they installed the water main across there. They necked up, went above typically you want to keep at least 4 feet of cover, if not more. But in that case, we would insulate it just to make sure it's frost protected.
But it'd still be under the road there.
It'd still be under the road.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes, sir.
My only question is, it's, the town doesn't own 4 Alexander Drive. I
For,
mean, doesn't own 23 Alexander Drive.
so 23 Alexandra Drive, I know that it's currently under liens for unpaid taxes. And from what I understand, talking to the town administrator, is that the town's in the process of obtaining that parcel. The expectation is that the town would have that parcel in hand before this work would proceed. And I did note that Nicole, I think, brought that up in her review as well. The intent here is that, this project wouldn't proceed until we have that parcel actually owned by the town of Freetown. But with the understanding of talking to the town administrator, she had asked that we move forward, assuming that the town would be the owner for the work.
Ma'am, did you have a question?
Yes.
Just state your name.
Jordan Joy.
Okay.
This might be outside the scope of what this meeting is, so please let me know. I understand the South Main Street Bridge has been contemplated for construction for a bit. How will that relate to installing the sewer line across that with the pending bridge construction?
Well, yes, it's out of the scope. And I don't want to answer that from my knowledge, because I don't know that I have all the facts.
Okay, I
But
understand.
there is no need, maybe you could do it, to change the bridge, so to speak, for this project.
Correct.
They're two different things, okay? I understand why you're asking it. To be met in different spectrums, I guess you could say, or venues. So the bridge work that would involve the sewer and involve conservation is different than what would be the bridge, okay? I'm not gonna say what I've heard through the grapevine, so to speak, as being what's gonna be done with the bridge to reinforce the bridge.
I was
Okay.
wondering if they would overlap at all or how that would. I understand it's probably outside of the scope.
Yeah,
It's just something that's very close.
it might make a good, idea to do the two together,
Yeah.
but, we're not at that point yet, ma'am.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, for what it's worth, this project, the town doesn't have grant funding to proceed with this work. Our scope at this point is just doing the design and the permitting for the work. So the expectation is that until we get the grant funding to proceed, this work wouldn't happen in the immediate future.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, I'll close the public input area of the hearing. Is any commission have any added question?
I'm all set.
All right, so basically, we're talking about Alexandria Drive and crossing the river. And that's it in the plan.
Correct.
Okay.
And I know there was some questions that came from the agent, which I did respond back to this afternoon.
Okay.
I do plan on meeting with her on Friday with my
Okay.
wetland scientist.
All
I
right.
think she had some questions regarding some of the delineated wetlands. I think most of which were within that area that we're pressure testing and cleaning, not so much the area that we're disturbing, so.
Okay.
That we do plan on meeting on Friday to go over that.
Okay, do you think you'd be, so you'd be able by the next meeting to, if we continue it to the next meeting, that would be, that would probably suffice with the area, what you need to talk to her about.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
that's reasonable. I mean, I think there was some minor adjustments she was looking for on the plans, which is no problem. Again, I just wanted to make sure she understood the scope of that area, specifically on the south side of South Main Street. So certainly at the next meeting, I think those answers should be had.
Okay, all right, so I'll accept the motion that we continue it, this hearing to January 27th.
At 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at the
police
Freetown
station.
Police Station.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made,
I'll second it.
motion is seconded. Margaret French,
Aye.
French says aye. Steve Tripp,
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Okay, so that'll close for this time the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Take care. Item number 9, first refusal notification under chapter 61A, 81 Middleborough Road. This is the site where we spoke of the solar array on the Cranberry Bog, just to refresh everyone's memory. I don't see where we would want to purchase that land, especially at the price it would probably be. So, anyone have any other input, any questions?
So Charlie, I'm looking at this picture. They're talking about the land that the solar is actually on, right?
Right.
Okay.
So what they're doing actually is they're changing the use of the land.
Yeah.
So because they're changing the use of the land and it's no longer going to be agricultural, they have to give they have to put it down for first refusal for the town. And if the town doesn't pick it up, then they pay the they pay off the taxes for a few years. I forget what it is. I think it's like 5-7 years. And then they will go through there.
The rollback taxes, yeah. Okay.
So could I have a motion?
I'll motion that we do not purchase the land.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Motion is passed. Item number 10, discuss and take action relative to land donation, Richmond Road, map 207, lot 038 in Cartway. This is the land we talked about last week or last meeting. The trust, I believe it is, that owns the property would like to give it to the town. It is basically landlocked, especially with the railroad now operating as it is. So I guess I'll take a motion on that. What do you want to do?
Mike, I think, is on the call.
Mike is on the call. He comes up.
Yeah. Mike, are you there?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now, yes.
Okay.
We're good, Mike.
Thank you. So, excuse me. There is one item outstanding, and that is that our town council requested from the Wildlands Trust, the holder of the conservation restriction, a certificate of estoppel, which basically was a certification that the land was being given to us in a state where it was fully compliant with its conservation restriction. As part of that process, the Wildlands Trust went out and did a walk of the property, observed the property, and there was an area where there have been some issues with dirt bikers getting in and basically having small parties. So they identified some trash that the current property owner is responsible for having cleaned up before the Wildlands Trust will issue the certificate. They expect that that will be done in relatively short order. So if you are voting to accept the donation, you would need to vote to accept the donation subject to receiving the certificate of estoppel.
All right. Now, this brings up a question I'm gonna have maybe. Do they have any, idea of how they can physically stop dirt bikers from using the land? In other words, are they also looking into that? Since this seems to be the cause of trash and so forth, and it is a little bit, I'm a little bit interested in how we're going to keep dirt bikers from using the land if possible.
My suspicion is right now the only ways to get into that property are either through the Conservation Commission's existing property or to trespass in the railroad right-of-way. So I know South Coast Rail has erected some fencing. It may be a matter of identifying where exactly they're getting in and putting up a small area of fence. I don't believe that the Wildlands Trust will do that. They don't own the property. They simply hold the conservation restriction. And I would be inclined to think that the property owner, since they have not done this for the last however many years, is probably not going to do it also. But I can't imagine that it would be a large area. I haven't been out there myself in a while, but when I was, they had started putting up the South Coast Rail fencing. So the trash could be old trash. I'm not actually sure.
All right, maybe, yeah, maybe we should take a look and see if the fencing has blocked that. And if it hasn't, then we'll have to get in touch with the MBTA, because I'm sure they don't want people riding dirt bikes along there right away. So probably to put up a fence, if they haven't already, would be good, but, all right. So we haven't received that document, correct? That the town council requests?
No, town council is expecting that when they do receive it, it will be adequate. And the Wildlands Trust is prepared to issue it, just subject to having that trash remediated.
Okay, so probably the best bet would be us to continue this item until we get those documents and check out what's going on.
Do we want to do that, or as Mike suggested, vote to accept it contingent upon getting that certificate?
Okay. You want to make that a motion, Margaret?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to accept the donation with the stipulations mentioned. Margaret French?
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp?
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks. You all have a good Christmas if I don't talk to you again.
Well, I'm
Good
gonna
night.
tell you, I'll be talking to you this week, Mike. All right?
Okay.
But I'll still try to have a good Christmas.
Good night.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks.
Item number 11, discuss and take action to apply for a grant with Taunton River Stewardship Council. Nicole had gotten a letter about 2 weeks ago, I guess now, from the Taunton River Stewardship. And they had heard of the proposed plans for porta pastures. And they had advised us that they do have the grant program, and it's up to $25,000. So this would be a vote to investigate the possibility of applying for a grant with the Taunton watershed. All right, we just need approval from the commission that we all know that it's being done.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is that the Taunton River watershed or is that a different organization?
Well, we have here Taunton River Stewardship Council.
Stewardship, okay, that's different. Thank
All
you.
right. So just if, I guess we want to take a formal vote that we would plan to look into grants. All
I
right,
will make that motion.
all right, motion has been made, motion is seconded, all in favor. Margaret French,
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, item number 12, confirm vote to issue an enforcement order for 54 Dr. Burley Road. This Dr. Burley Road is issue here is this property. The owner was in front of us, I want to say 2 or 3 meetings ago. He was advised that he needed to get a plan and come before the board to address the issues that he had been doing on his property at Dr. Burley Road. He has not responded, and like I said, we voted last meeting to issue the enforcement order. We're confirming that tonight.
I will make that motion.
Motion's been made.
I'll second it.
Motion has been seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. So this is, I think, gonna be a little bit of a battle here, but we're taking step number 1. Item number 13, discussion on Conservation Commission budget and possible warrant article. As we know, we're getting into budget season. I just wanted to say, anyone have any thing they want to input on the budget or for the warrant, to please just advise us. The budget, I would say, would probably stay generally the same as it has been. I know that, excuse me, there's been a notion for a number of years that the Conservation Commission has certain powers, and that those certain powers are granted by a local option law, and Freetown has never accepted that local option law. But we've kind of acted on it or in the past, the commission. So I would like to clear that up and at least get it before the town meeting to try to get the town to accept this local option law. There's a law that actually set up conservation commissions under the Wetlands Act, and then the second law is a local option that gave certain powers to conservation commissions. So that's what that possible warrant article that I'm thinking of. But if anyone else has anything they think we should put on the warrant, just bring it before the commission. All right?
Okay.
So we'll go from that, and then any other business before the Conservation Commission.
Millbrook Restoration.
All right, Millbrook Restoration, the work that the state has done on, the Cranberry Bog on Howland Road. It's coming up for review, well, it's coming up for the end of it, actually,
It's expiring.
It's expiring.
January 13th.
January 13th. The thing is that we probably will not have a meeting before January 13th. We do have a scheduled meeting.
We
But-
have a meeting for January 13th, but there's a potential town meeting on January 13th. So if that's the case, we wouldn't be able to hold our meeting unless we did it earlier in the day.
Right. And so maybe we would get together, maybe on a Zoom meeting to extend this before it expires, because if you don't do it by the time it expires, they're supposed to have to refile. So we might want to do that. But we'll have to, I guess we'll have to wait and see what next week.
Yeah, because I also have to contact them to make sure that it was a recorded order of conditions as well.
All
So
right, so they hadn't recorded.
not that we can find.
But we can, not that we can find that they had recorded it, so they might have to record it before they come before us
For the
for an
extension,
extension. All right?
Okay.
So I'll accept the motion to adjourn the Conservation Commission. We do have a matter for Soil Conservation Board that we'll take up
All right.
momentarily.
Mr. Chairman, before you
Yes.
convene, can I ask a question?
Yes.
How do one get something on your agenda for your consideration?
You can call Nicole at the office, and she'll be happy to assist you
Does
there.
she work normal working hours at the office in Freetown? in
Yeah.
the Town hall?
Most of the time, I'm the only one in the office currently, so there are times that I'm
Oh, are you
not.
up on the third floor?
I was, they moved me down to the first floor now.
Down the first?
I was on the third floor,
Okay,
yes.
next to someone on the first floor? Next to,
When you come in the town hall, I'm the third door on the left side now.
oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Before the assessor's office,
Yeah.
across from the town clerk's office.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
you're welcome.
So I'll accept the motion to adjourn the Conservation Commission.
I will make that motion.
Motion's been made. Motion is seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Meeting is adjourned. Now I'll take up the meeting of the Soil Conservation Board for Monday, December 9th, 2024. And the item one is a review and vote to renew permit 529 Janice Marie Way, map 241, lot 62, property John Mello. So here's the thing, the Water Commission has stated that they haven't complied with their request. And they had requested that all permits be denied, I guess you could say. The only thing, I'm not, and I was remiss, I was gonna look this up in the town bylaws. I know that there's for tax purposes that you can deny, but I don't know about non-compliance with other boards' requests, if that stands. So my question is, do we want to issue the permit now, or do we want to wait again? Like I said, I'm remiss. I was gonna look up the town bylaw, but I forgot, to be perfectly honest. So there's a motion to table. Is there a second to that?
Yes, I will second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to table item number one on the agenda, until, such time as we get more information. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. All right, yes. It's, a little, I just don't want us to do something wrong and, get ourselves into, some murky water that we don't need to get into.
Right.
All right, with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn the soil conservation.
Did we want to see when we want to schedule,
Oh,
the site inspection for Cape Cod aggregates on Bryant
yes.
Street?
Margaret, do you
Yes.
have any preference for when you would like to go to Cape Cod aggregate?
As of this Friday at 5 o'clock, I am done with school until January 13th. I am free as a bird.
Okay, all righty. So Nicole, will you get back to them?
I know they said, next Saturday they could, potentially, but I know it's the week of Christmas as well, so I don't know if that works or if I should just let them know. You said till what day, Margaret, is back at school?
I'm back at school. Well, I'm still kind of free. January 13th.
Okay,
Okay, Margaret, how about the first Saturday of the new year of January?
Perfect.
Why don't we do that?
first Saturday of January?
Yes,
Got it.
okay.
Okay.
All right, with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the Soil Conservation Board.
I will make that motion. Wow.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Margaret French.
Aye.
Margaret French says aye. Steve Tripp.
Aye.
Steve Tripp says aye. Charlie Sullivan says aye. Margaret, I think even though it was an hour and a half here tonight, we got out of it easy.
Yeah, the chatter before the meeting made it sound like it was gonna be a bad thing.
Well, well, some people rule with an iron fist, I guess.
Yeah.